You want me to write about something I'm passionate about? Nah, that'd never... But what if, though? This is not the story of an indie game from 2013. It was born into the loving arms of Davey Wreden after humble beginnings as a Half-Life 2 mod. It laughed, it cried, and it enjoyed critical success amongst those with a love of clever narratives, but most importantly, I never played it. It was PC exclusive and I didn't build my first computer with Steam until 2017. Which is why this is the story of a slightly less indie game from 2022. It was born into the loving arms of 3 crows from the money and success of its predecessor, which, depending on who you talk to, it either doesn't appreciate at all or obsessively worships. It is a game where the only real mechanic is your free will, a game whose sequel is mostly a bucket, and a game I fell in love with because of a broom closet. This is the story of the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. If you grew up on YouTube like I did, you may remember the Stanley Parable as a game that was played by a handful of very big Let's Players before never being heard from ever again. A quirky walking simulator with a funny British narrator and a big yellow line playing bombastic music as you followed along. But that's just it. It was a walking simulator, and what's more, it's a walking simulator without an obvious hook. There's really no goal to attach yourself to, no immediate conflict to be invested in, no true heroes or villains, and the gameplay is pretty shy of exciting to watch. So, the big names online stopped making content about it, and thus, people outside of its cult following stopped talking about it. It fell out of the zeitgeist. What's more, you really can't do anything in it either. There are no special abilities, you can't pick up anything except for a bucket, most doors can't be opened, you can't sprint, you can't break things, you can't leave, you can't see your own legs, and depending on the circumstance, you can't even die. This of course begs the question, what exactly can you do? Well, you can do the one thing that ultimately led you, yes you, to this video. You can choose. You chose to get out of bed today. You chose to leave your room. You chose to sit in that chair, or likely the toilet, I'm not judging, and you chose to watch this video. Even the handful of people who have already clicked off of this video have made a choice, and so they've gotten their ending. When will the video end for you, I wonder? What will you choose? Or perhaps, will you let time decide for you? This is the gameplay of the Stanley Parable. You, by taking control of Stanley, go about your day as you always have. You are a corporate drone with a mundane job, simply plugging away at your keyboard as tasks are fed to you, and you are content with that. It's as though you were born to do this. That is until no tasks arrive this morning, and you realize that all of your coworkers are gone. Where have they gone? How did you not notice that until now? Do you even care? All of these things and more are for you to decide. All the while listening to the guiding words of the narrator who is reading your thoughts aloud. As for me, and the reason I made this video, I decided to stand in a broom closet. On my first playthrough, I decided to see what the default ending was, provided that I made no decisions for myself. I played my role to the T. The story went exactly as the narrator said it would, and I walked away with a happy ending. But along the way, I'd made mental notes of every chance I had to make my own path. The first 2 doors, the staircase leading to the boss's office, the escape path, and the most obvious one of significance being the last one, choosing to push the on or off button at the end. So I began the story again and told a new parable. One that was similar to the last, but with one glaring difference along the way. Leave the office, go to the meeting room, and then...
Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might. Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
I did not do that, because the narrator said so, and this was my story now.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
The choice to be here was mine, and I chose to stay.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
I was simply admiring, judging, all of the default source engine assets and farming the game for more dialogue.
Are you really still in the broom closet?
Yes.
Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused.
I am a content creator who is milking you for money and views on the internet, because this is my life now.
You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it.
It's of significance to mine because I want it to be. And this is the moment that you've been waiting for. I'm just going to let the next couple minutes of my unscripted reaction to what comes next play out.
Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path.
Exactly.
Maybe when you go to talk about this with your friends, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning.
I mean, it's pretty mid at best, pretty C tier.
Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Stanley got a job that led to him staying in a broom closet forever because of nepotism, drugs, and hookers.
You're dead.
What?
You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here, when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. They have fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the
narrator's not
long-term
human.
sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another
The narrator
human to take
isn't
their place,
human.
making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
This game's brilliant. This game is awesome. I love it. And the fact that this game is brilliant is why we're here. Because as much as I'd love to make a what's it like that no one's going to watch, followed by an is it actually good that at least some of you will watch, I didn't want to be limited by the format of those videos. Those will almost certainly get made, but not right now, because right now, surprise! This is a secret I like this thing video. And what I like is how unapologetically unlike any other game the Stanley Parable is. The game has basically no mechanics. Almost the entire thing was thrown together by a small team using source assets and pre-made texture packs. The full release of the game was written and designed by just 2 people. And the remake, Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, was ported to the Unity engine so that it would no longer remain a PC exclusive. And you can tell this game was dominantly made by only a couple of people, not just because of the negative things like the low-res textures or default models, but because it is untainted by large-scale development. No publishers with monetization agendas, no corporate politics of a big development studio, just a tidy little package filled with some of the most clever gaming culture satire and schizophrenic ideas that never would have made it past a board of directors or a QA department. So how, pray tell, did a game where you let a baby die in a fire, nuke a mind control facility, just walk around in other people's games and do whatever this is in a mostly bottomless hole, make it past a director? Because he's one of the 2 guys writing it! I like the Stanley Parable because it is an incredible concept piece. Through very little more than just walking and listening, the game sacrifices a typical goal for a point. It's a game that first makes you choose, and then makes you think. It makes you question the nature of the relationship between protagonist and narrator, the relationship between player, game, and game developer, and even the potential consequences of free will versus predestination and fate. There are theologians and scholars who don't know their stance on that one. The original creator, Davey Wreden, said that he set out to create the original Half-Life 2 mod because he wanted to create a game that was unlike anything he'd ever seen before. He realized that even in games with thought-provoking narratives like BioShock, most would make a lot of assumptions about the player's intent and experience. So he began asking a ton of what-if questions about what would happen if the player were to go against what the game would typically expect from them, and landed on this design prompt. Mess with the player's head in every way possible, throwing them off guard or pretending that there's an answer, before kinda just whisking it away from in front of them. Shortly thereafter, Davey was contacted by William Pugh, the aforementioned director, and the rest is history. Also, if the name Wreden sounds familiar, it's because Davey Wreden, the developer of this game, is the brother of Douglas Wreden, better known as DougDoug. Hi, Doug! You're never going to see this, but I've seen an embarrassing amount of your content. Congrats on the Streamer Awards. And none of this is even mentioning the immaculate glory of the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. A kind friend who has always been there whenever you've needed it, whose soothing presence has carried you through the most agonizing of life's tragedies like tranquil water in a bucket. Naturally, being perfect in every conceivable way, even the nigh omnipotent narrator finds himself jealous of the relationship that you two share. And the bucket does what the narrator only ever truly dreamt of doing. The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket graced you with the Stanley Parable 2, as bringing the bucket with you nearly doubles the game's existing content because almost every one of the main endings will either have new dialogue or an entirely different ending in place of the one that you once received when you were sad and bucketless. What? Wait, this is a completely different ending entirely. Oh my gosh, having the bucket changes everything? Well, crap, now I have to go and play the entire game again, but with this bucket. You may have noticed throughout all of this, I've spoken remarkably little about the game's longer form story or any of the endings, and there is a good reason for that. I haven't told you about the game's many stories because I'm not going to. The Stanley Parable, truthfully, isn't much of a game, but it is a fascinating narrative experience. A game, or at least most games, can be replayed, but an experience is something you can only truly have once. So, if you want to know about how the game progresses, the nature of the narrator, who Stanley is, and why the bucket is just so shiny, you'll have to choose to experience that for yourself. You know, when Ralph Waldo Emerson said the quote, "The only person you are destined to become is who you choose to be," I don't think he ever expected someone to make a game out of that.